Hello, and welcome to Families Are First Teachers, a video series designed to support families who are supporting learners at home. Presently, many families are finding themselves having to help their children navigate remote schoolwork. Some caregivers say they are feeling like substitute teachers for their own kids these days. However, what we know about families is that they are children's first and often best teachers. These short videos are designed by experts in curriculum and instruction, behavior, and special education from Summit Educational Service Center and State Support Team Region 8 with the goal of empowering family members for the new teaching roles they find themselves in. Hello, and welcome to Families Are First Teachers, a video series designed to support families who are supporting learners at home. Presently, many families are finding themselves having to help their children navigate remote schoolwork. Some caregivers say they are feeling like substitute teachers for their own kids these days. However, what we know about families is that they are children's first and often best teachers. These short videos are designed by experts in curriculum and instruction, behavior, and special education from Summit Educational Service Center and State Support Team Region 8 with the goal of empowering family members for the new teaching roles they find themselves in. Hello, my name is Jessica Campagna, and I am a behavior specialist at Summit Educational Service Center. This presentation is entitled Stop It Before It Starts, Strategies for Recognizing and De-escalating Behavior. In this presentation, you're going to learn about the signs and triggers of any type of behavior escalation, the phases in which those fall under and what they are typically called, your responses to those behaviors, and hopefully you'll gain some additional tips and reassurance too. All of this information comes from a training program that is called Nonviolent Crisis Intervention, or CPI. You may have heard of this program through your child's school district or educational learning facility. Typically, people think of CPI and they consider this as the restraint training. Yes, that is a part of the training. However, many school districts, hospitals, other types of businesses and facilities out there use this training in order to identify those signs of escalation, behavior, and ways to work through that with any individual in any given setting. So first things first, there can be multiple reasons for behavior. There are so many reasons that can be happening at one time, and those reasons have nothing to do with us, as much as we may think so or get frustrated about a situation. There are triggers like pain, hunger, thirst, sleep, frustration, noise, lights, the weather, anything you can think of. And sometimes it's hard to have those coping mechanisms, especially in this new and different home learning environment. So what do we need to know before we dive into everything? It is important that you know that behavior affects behavior. Your child affects your behavior affects your child's, your child affects someone else's behavior. In any given moment, we can't always 100% control the behavior of others, but we can certainly control our response to the behavior or how we enter any given situation. So take just a minute to think about what things set off or trigger your child's behavior. How do you usually respond? What do you say? What do you do? Perhaps what do you not say or do that now looking at this, you may wish you did do that? And how are some ways that you can keep yourself calm in this new and different stressful environment? The first phase that we are going to discuss today is something noted as anxiety. And what is this? It is a change in behavior. This is how we know that our child has gone from happy, attending, on task, wonderful, and participating to, ooh, something's up and I should probably ask them what's going on and how I can help them. Your child may have a change in their facial expression. They may slump down in their seat or where their posture changes. Maybe there are other triggers or signals that you see, such as biting nails or pacing across the room or clenching their fists. And what is your response? It's to be supportive. What does that mean? We ask them what's going on. We listen. We hear them out. We let them vent. We're non-judgmental. If they perhaps are limited in verbal ability or nonverbal, do they have that communication device? Can you show them pictures or other ways to identify what's going on and how they can be helped? Perhaps your child doesn't want to talk, so maybe they can write something down for you or draw what's bothering them. Or maybe they just need time and space and you back off and come back to it a few minutes later. Then there's something called the defensive state. And this is where the person is starting to get more heightened and escalated, and they're beginning to what they call lose rationality. What happens here is a lot of verbal behavior, arguing, yelling, name calling, threats, oppositional defiant, non-compliant behavior, refusal. So what do you do in this case? Allow space, time for reflection. Think about us when we're stressed and we may be worried about something or really mad about a situation. Sometimes when somebody is saying, hey, what about this? And hey, why don't you try this? And they try to come close and sit with us. We just want our space. Our children need that too. And sometimes taking that time, waiting things out as long as they're safe, long as they're not hurting themselves or anyone else, can be what gets that behavior control going. We're not going to get any work done when they're upset, and we may get more upset too. So sometimes we take a step back and we wait. We avoid those power struggles. It's important to not get into an argument and to give rational, calm responses no matter what. We set limits. What does that mean? We use the first then statement. First math, then break time. First reading, then we can go outside. We give very simple, clear instructions, not too many steps. Simple words, one thing at a time. We remove the audience if we need to. We even turn ourselves and leave the room to give them space. We have the other children, if they're at home, go to another area. We encourage the child that's upset to remove themselves and go take a walk or something like that. We're reasonable in our expectations in the moment when we're working, but also in that de-escalating situation when we're trying to calm them down. Yes, we want to push them, and yes, we know they can, but sometimes we got to step back and keep things reasonable. We must be enforceable. Follow through with what you're promising. Say you set a timer for an activity, 3 more minutes, and then we get a break. Follow through with that. 2 more questions, and then you can have a snack. Follow through with that. It's important because that reinforcement and that follow through causes the child to be more likely to want to do the work and follow the instruction next time. Same goes for a consequence. If you set a consequence, follow through with what you're saying, because that makes the structure very consistent, just as we do in the school environment. The next phase that you see here is something called risk behavior. Typically what happens here is a behavior that is a risk to self or others. These could be things so extreme as aggression, property destruction, running from the room or the area or the building or wherever you are. Yes, these are most extreme, and typically we do see those in the most extreme situations, but I do want to give you this information so that you're aware of where things can get to, and hopefully give you some tools just in case. Consider things like, is the danger of intervening or not intervening worse than the danger of not intervening or intervening? Sometimes we let things go, sometimes we shouldn't. Sometimes we give things a minute, sometimes we jump in right away, and you may have to weigh that out in any given situation. In any situation where a child is escalating, to prevent it from getting serious or unsafe, you want to stay calm. Avoid sudden movements or big physical reactions. Respect their space and their independence. Talk quietly. Limit the number of people talking. Perhaps you do have multiple adults in the home setting. Have one person talk to the child, especially when they're escalating. If in case things do become unsafe, perhaps you have that team approach, that buddy, that someone you call. How do you keep your environment safe for everyone? Important things to consider. Hopefully, again, you don't get to that point, but just for purposes of covering this information, I wanted to put these things out there. Final phase is tension reduction. This is where there's a drop in energy, or how you know that your child is calm and ready to come back to the task at hand. They may take deep breaths. They may want to count. They may apologize to you. They are definitely no longer arguing and resisting the work. That's an important key to look for. What is your response? You are to have the most teachable moment you can to reestablish communication and that relationship with your child. We can certainly discuss what happened and what we can do differently next time, but it's important to give the reassurance and the encouragement. Hey, I know this happened. Here's how we can get back on track. I know you can do it. Great job. I love how you're trying to do this again. Give them more time and space if they need. The idea here is to stay calm and stay working so we don't go back through any of those phases again. And just for additional information, we also know that just because I went through those phases in this kind of sequential order, that's not always how things happen, and that we may have to be patient because things can cycle through over and over again a few times before we're finally calm. In that postvention or debriefing section, kind of after the fact, some things to again stay calm, and how do we know we're ready to get back to work and ready to do what we were trying to do before we got all upset, is something called the coping model. And this is a nice acronym to help you remember the tools and important steps. Control, emotional and physical control. Your child must be under this to return back to the task, and you must be too. Are we calm? Are we able to have a discussion? Are we no longer crying or frustrated? We orient to the basic facts. Yes, we do need to talk about what happened, and maybe we jot those things down for reference for later if you want to. We take a look at patterns, which are the triggers and the trends in behavior. If you are in this home learning environment for a while, you may want to keep track of these things, such as, is my child always having a hard time at 10:30 every morning? Is it always a Monday or a Tuesday or a Wednesday or so forth? Is it always when a certain activity is taking place? Then how can you alter what's going on based on that information over time? Then we investigate alternatives or replacements to the behavior. So, hey, instead of just getting upset and getting frustrated, tell me I need help. Ask me for a break, and I'd be happy to give that to you. Model some of those appropriate behaviors for your child. Come up with those troubleshooting strategies. We negotiate those future approaches and expectations. Hey, when we do this, here's what I want you to do. Do you understand? Are you on the same page? I know you can do it. Remember, we keep working and we get to do something really cool on Friday night. Something like that. And then we give control and support and encouragement back to your child. Hey, it's on you. I know you can do it. You're doing a great job, but if you need me, I'm right here. We also need to do that to ourselves. If you're on your own, perhaps you pat yourself on the back in any given situation. You call a friend. They're doing it too. You support each other. We all need that as well. So I do have some additional tips and strategies kind of within and outside of those various phases. There are things to remember, such as precipitating factors or factors that contribute to behavior. Yes, there are some things you can change, but we also know there are some things you can't. And regardless of what those factors are, we know that we can alter the day and respond differently to make it successful, not just for your child, but for you. So those are things like implementing more frequent breaks from the work, getting up and moving, praising and recognizing the good behavior maybe more frequently that day because we need it. Perhaps we learn outside today instead of inside. Perhaps we get to, learn laying under a blanket today because we need to. Those are, again, those things you can alter to make the day successful. Additional tips and strategies number 2 is for you, the parent or the educator in the home environment. It's something called rational detachment, which means not taking behavior of others personally. No matter how much of a struggle the education is, no matter how upset your child gets or what name they may call you, you have to understand that yes, this is difficult and stressful for everybody, and that it's not you and your skills that are the problem. That can tear us down. So it's also important to take care of yourself and find those outlets. What is your de-stressor? Do you exercise? Do you have candy or a comfort food or a cup of coffee? Do you need to read a book or something? What is your self-care item, and stick to that. Third, nonverbal communication. I've mentioned things like body language and facial expression and things like that, but also just thinking about things like personal space. How close you are. Is it too close? Not far enough? Does that bother your child? Do they need more help in that area? And touch. Think about things like just that pat on the back or that squeeze of the hand. Those can be things that are so simple that show support without words. So take note of those as well. Fourth, paraverbal communication. This is a great concept that we look at that says how we say what we say. So it's not the words in which we're saying, but how we're delivering the message in a conversation, in instruction, and in behavior de-escalation. We take a look at our tone of voice. We all know that no matter what we say can come off differently just based on our tone and how we're saying that. Our volume can be important. Our child can tell us that they're excited, upset, anxious, stressed, maybe when they raise their voice. They may tell us that they're shutting down or worried about something, or they don't want us to hear what they're saying when they get quiet. It's also important for us to watch how we raise our voice. Yes, we want to speak loud enough and get the message across, but we also don't want to yell to show that we're heightened and that we're angry, because then our child knows they pushed our buttons and that there's a battle happening in that sense. Again, it's important that we are clear, concise with every message that we're giving, especially in a situation where a child may be upset and escalated. Be reasonable. Again, know where to push them, but also know where to stay calm and break things down if we need to. Make things that you're saying feasible to achieve, the time you have, the place you're in, the resources you have, and everything else. And then finally, don't ask a question unless you're asking a question. What I mean by this is, yes, it's fine to say, what is 2 + 2? What does this word say? But when we say things like, can you help me clean up? Won't you come sit here for math lesson now? Can you do this reading for me? That gives the child the option to say no. And when anyone has the option to say no and there's someone else is trying to push, of course that's going to cause escalation. So state things in an instructional demand format. So what now? What should you really remember? Well, keep in mind that these are things that may take small steps, and probably a lot of small steps, and perhaps the same small steps over and over. Things take time, especially in this new and different, strange environment. Sometimes trial and error may have to occur. You may have to try one strategy and perhaps that didn't work, so you try something else, or one day it worked and the next day it didn't. So the keys here again are to catch things before they escalate, hopefully with these skills, and prevent them from escalating too much. Hopefully, too, these things help you to work on your child's behavior and yours and give you the whole picture for success. So that concludes this module on the de-escalating strategies. Thank you for joining us. If you found this video helpful, you can find additional ones just like it on the Summit ESC YouTube channel. Just visit YouTube and search for Summit ESC. There you'll find educational and additional brief videos on social emotional needs, supports for diverse learners, developing a growth mindset, and academic content supports. We hope these videos provide some new ideas, tips for supporting your learners at home and in life. Thanks again.